And good morning, everyone. It is still morning. Lee's here with Wednesday's look at the Wall Street Journal, and I've only got four articles today. I bragged yesterday how I always have at least four to five. Well, today's four. Um, Maybe I'm hung over from the debates last night, and maybe nothing else stands up to the impact of the debates, but I'll talk about that briefly at the end. So glad to have you here today, and appreciate this time to share just a few good articles that you might find interesting out of today's Wall Street Journal. First of all, Disney is laying off 28,000 employees. Now, many of them were temporary part-time employees. Doesn't change the fact for them, though, that that's a significant loss. And the real issue is in California, where the government is not allowing the parks to reopen. And in the difficulty the parks are having, and Disney actually had some criticism at Orange County and the state government, saying we've got no guidance. This is the issue with when the government got involved with shutting down the economy. They had to have guidance, and if you looked in your local area, you had lots of issues about, am I included or not? Are gyms there? Are churches there? And of course, in California, the parks were left out of the guidance. So they said, look, we're not going to give you guidance, but you can't open. And so Disney's had a hard time with that and said, look, include us in the guidance, update your guidance. It's a big deal in California. There's lots of parks out there, as well, most of you know. So what's interesting is the parks in Florida are open, and if you look at the positivity rate on COVID tests, in Florida it's 4.3%. In Orange County it's 2.7%. So you could argue, and by the way, that's why Disney wants some guidance, is what level does this have to get down to? We're already open in Florida, and it appears to be doing okay. So at 28,000, huge layoff, and lots of people needing that income, I'm sure, to make a living. So have we saved the owl? So the northern spotted owl was listed in 1990 as an endangered species. And so that led to a lot of restrictions in California to tree cutting. So and obviously there was some forest planning people that said, look, we can trim these forests out, leave large trees for the owls, and the owls will be okay. Every time they tried to do that, the environmentalists would fight them in court and typically hold it up. So these lawsuits held a lot of that. And by the way, this in Oregon, I'm talking about now, though is not much different in California. So in 2016, the U.S. Forest Service started planning a 13,000 acre thinning project. And of course, environmentalists immediately went to court and went all the way up to the Ninth U.S. Appeals Court, and it's been held up because of all these environmental lawsuits. So I thought that was interesting. They went to one of the environmentalist groups and said, okay, now that the forest is burned down, what do you think about this? You held this up. The wood and debris built up in the forest, created tinderbox. It's all burned down now. What do you think about it? Their answer was, it's too early to draw conclusions. So, I want to ask them, where's the owls at that you saved? Where are they at? And how many are still left? Are there any left? Because you drug everybody through court all these years and wouldn't allow any forest thinning. Where's your owls at now? Because you were in charge of protecting them. And by the way, will you tell all your donors how well you did to protect the owls? I don't know where the owls are. The article, didn't, I think it's too early probably to really count the owls and see if they got away or whatever. Um, but interesting story. If you can see, I'll give you some stats to show you the impact on logging in Oregon. In 1990, there was 4 billion board feet. It's how they measure, how much lumber they take out of the forest. 4 billion board feet pulled out. In 2019, that was down to 0.4 billion board feet. So a tenth of the amount of lumber is pulled out in 2019 as it was in 1990. So lumbering the lumber industry has really been almost stopped, and then of course we see that what happened with the fires, and that lumber is all burned up now, or mostly burned up. Third article: America's colleges are not open to ideas, new ideas. So it was an interesting survey they did, 20,000 students at 55 different schools, and they looked at two different things. How did they view the administration's support for free speech, and then how did they view the students' support for free speech? What's interesting is generally the administration got much higher marks for tolerance for free speech than the students did. And in fact, University of Chicago has been widely recognized as one that said, look, from an administration standpoint, has been highly regarded about tolerance for free speech and different views. The administration got a 91.6 out of 100-point score. The students got a 55.8. So you could argue, and this has been interesting because a lot of people are blaming the colleges. When they blame the colleges, what do they mean? So it appears that the administrations of these colleges are doing a much better job at this tolerance than the students themselves are. And of course, if you watched any of these speeches by typically conservative people, though comics have had a tough time on college campuses too, but if you've seen these speeches, they're not disrupted typically by administration. Administration keeps them off the campus if they can, and that they usually lose that eventually. But what happens is the students come in and disrupt and stand up in the middle of it and start yelling and hold signs up and won't allow the speech to go on. So, the observation I would have is the students seem very concerned about their peers and are trying to protect their peers from divergent thought. And that's a shame because they've been taught something up through elementary and high school to take them into college and believe this. And maybe some of it is professors at colleges, but that's a shame. So last article, and I'll share a graph here, but the retail closures are going to hit a record this year. It's on target to surpass 2010, which came after the recession when we had 48 bankruptcies. Already, the far right one is at 29 bankruptcies this year so far, and we're at 8 months. So, and by the way the chart works is the dark red color at the top of the chart is how many bankruptcies added that month. The far left column is January, and it goes through August on the far right. And huge bankruptcies this year, or multiple store closures. And by the way, this is focused on retail. So I'm not talking about restaurants. We're talking about retail stores here. The restaurants have a whole nother set of problems, and I think we're going to see some huge fallout there. But and down at the bottom, and you can't read it on yours, but they categorized the bankruptcies. I thought was pretty interesting. 39% are in apparel and footwear. 24% in home furnishings. And I found that very interesting. You would have thought with people stuck with COVID, because I know remodeling is way up. They said the remodelers are all booked solid, but home furnishings are 24% of the bankruptcies. Department stores, 15% of the bankruptcies. And then there's another category, everything else is 22%. But huge GNC, Ascena Retail, which is Men's Warehouse, Joseph A. Banks, and a discounter, Steinmart. And then, of course, GNC, J.C. Penney, 157 stores, Neiman Marcus, 24 stores, Modell's is all the stores, Pier 1's all the stores. There's a big home furnishings category there. So a lot of closures there, and it looks like they'll pass up 2010's record of 48 bankruptcies and of major retail outlets. So not good news there. Lots of people obviously losing their job and having to find another job. And if, with retail experience, the retail jobs are going to be less and less available. So last, on the debate, it was frustrating to me to watch last night. I really wasn't going to talk about the debate. I just was done with it. But I ran across, and I normally share stuff from the Wall Street Journal, but I ran across National Review article on it. And I thought I'd share their summary of it. And National Review, for those of you who know, is a conservative, very conservative magazine. And it's great articles. I enjoy many of their articles and looking at their view of things. But their question was, who wins an unwatchable debate? Now, I had something to do last night with a group of people, so I watched about the first hour, went out and did something, recorded it, came back and watched the rest of it. And I almost didn't watch the rest of it because the first hour I thought, I've seen enough and I don't think this is going to get better. And sure enough, I watched the other, I think I watched a half hour and then I watched an hour to close it, and nothing got better. And so reminded me of being in junior high and out on the playground with a couple of junior high kids screaming at each other. It made me wish for the debates of old, the Art Buchwald days, going back when the talk was slower. There was a pause between person speaking. You clearly waited to make sure that the person was clearly done. You didn't wait for the first breath that the person took and jumped in there or talked over them. And so it made me, and I may this afternoon go back and watch some old debates to clear my mind of this junk I watched last night. So I'm not going to go into who won. This is a stupid conversation. Anybody's who won the debate. I think National Review's got it right. It's hard to watch a debate that nobody wanted to watch, and I wonder what the numbers are if they track them on how many were watching at the beginning and how fast they peeled off and went somewhere else. But and I've got a question, and I can post this up. So what are your thoughts about the moderator? Do you think they need to be replaced? So that's a very interesting question. I'm glad you brought this up. We didn't have a moderator. If you go back to our Buchwald days, we really didn't have a moderator. We had somebody that put a debate subject out on the table. And then the two debaters from both sides went after explaining their sides in a very professional manner. So the moderator was really well hidden. And so last night, the moderator was part of the debate in my mind. And so very good question. And I'm a fan of the moderator, Wallace. I like him. I understand he doesn't like Trump much. but I also understand he's conservative. But he seemed to be too much part of the debate, and maybe he could have got out of the way more and not been shouting. I mean, we had three people shouting, basically, right? Is what we had at the time, and so that's my view on that. I wouldn't have shared that unless comment pulled it out of me. But I thought he could have started things and said, okay, I'm going to give you the next, don't interrupt, but I'm going to give you the next 20 minutes to talk about the economy, and go back and forth, and I'll keep out of it. So that's my view on that. So thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed this. And I'll be back Thursday to give you, and maybe we'll see some more stuff tomorrow on the debate as more people settle down. By the way, ignore the fact checking. I got to tell you, fact checking is a science anymore, and both sides do it. When I see fact checking by the New York Times, I'm thinking, why would I read that? Because I know what it's going to say. So ignore the fact checking. If you understand the subject, you'll understand, the fine people hoax that was discussed last night. You can fact check that all you want, and I can tell you can hear both sides of that, and it's a lie. It didn't happen if you read the whole context. But I'm sure there's things that Trump said that you can fact check both ways too. So fact checks have biases, and if you understand the biases, you pick your own fact check website, and it'll work great. Cheers.